But that was my rock bottom and what kick-started my road to recovery, or my thought process of something's got to change. It wasn't about me dying. I didn't care if I died. Really didn't. I didn't care if every time I took a pill, I actually got rushed to hospital once. I had a heart attack when I was 21. And every time I took an ecstasy tablet, I just popped a heart beta blocker. I didn't care for my own life. So the thought of helping my sister and her children, I think, is what really was the turning point.
So, one thing I want to touch on, so we've discussed your rock bottom and kind of what the process was. Do you feel like your experiences in your childhood, I guess what I'm asking is your mental health. What was that what prompted kind of these binges where you started drinking and you started, doing drugs? Was it something that you were using to self-medicate? Were you dealing with leftover trauma from your childhood? Like what really kick-started this slide?
I had I had quite a traumatic childhood, and I'm trying to think the earliest stage of when I went to therapy. It was quite young. And I remember my first suicidal thoughts was probably from the age of, I think it was about 12, because we just moved house. And I'd always stand at the window. I can remember it clear as day. So probably 12 years old is the first time I had really suicidal thoughts. So I was not the most stablest teenager as it was. And then I started drinking properly from about 13. And then when
Wow.
I was 15, I got told that by the doctors, because I was having medical problems, because I drank so young, my organs hadn't properly developed. And I started getting really bad, like lower back pains, like really enabling. I would be disabling. Sorry, I'd be on the floor where I was in so much pain. So yeah, I definitely. You can always. It's unfortunate, isn't it? But it is something you can take a lot of it back to. I'm sure not everyone drinks and does drugs for that reason, but yeah. So that's why I included trauma within the book, um, and mental health, obviously, because it's all wrapped up together in a messy little ball.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but I don't think that anybody who's perfectly content with their life and the way that things have been are really, going out and drinking and doing all this. I have to say that the only thing that saved me from a path like that was the fact that I had children relatively young. And before that, I was in the army. I was in the service, so I had to be clean for this. And I think that I did get to a point where I tried finding other things to cope with, and then just the way that my life was set up, I couldn't really do all this. And I joke with everybody, and I'm like, hey, you have no idea what it's like parenting three kids absolutely sober. Like, you're going through all of your garbage, and you can't even sit down and have a drink to take the edge off, or, smoke some weed and just relax. But I've never been too much of a smoker. I have had my moments where I will take down a bottle and it'll be, I'm sure you can relate that you drink just so much that your chest feels like it's gonna explode. Like it just feels like, it's like, oh my God, I'm either going to pass out or fly right now. I don't know which one it's going to be. So I did have, there were also times where I would download a bunch of simulation games on my phone or on my tablet, and all I would do was play that for hours. Tell this person to go do this task, check back in 12 hours and go do this. And I didn't understand why I was so enmeshed into it, but it was the safest thing that I could do that's to still keep. I was breastfeeding. I breastfed each one of my children for a year, and I couldn't put anything in my body that they couldn't take. So I got to this point where between eating and playing video games, that's how I coped with whatever was going on. And it's not the fastest route, but I was still killing myself with ordering like McDonald's like 3 times a day. And I would do the same thing. I would justify, I'd be like, you know what? It's not really junk food if I'm ordering a salad from McDonald's. Like, is it really? It's whatever. Or I did well enough that I lost 5 pounds. So I think I can go ahead and order myself something extra from McDonald's because I've been doing so good. So I think that that's really, once you start making excuses for the things that are slowly killing you, that's when you have to sit down and think, I might have a little bit of a problem. I might need to figure out what's going on, because I think that part of the reason why we do things like this is to mask all of the thoughts that we're having, that it's just like, oh my God, I don't want to say that out loud. For me, it was, I've been seeing the same therapist for like 4 years. Before that, I remember as a kid, I was seeing a therapist. I've been seeing a therapist for, God, as long as I can remember. And there were certain things that I remember I would say out loud in, like, the very first time that I said out loud, I really just don't want to be a parent anymore. I don't want to do this right now because it's so stressful. I don't think I could take care of myself, let alone other people that completely rely on me. And when I said it out loud, I stopped in my tracks and I'm like, oh, that sounds so bad. And then I just wanted to, like, you know what? I need to go out and get myself something to eat because that just, I don't even want to think about that right now. And I think that those things can really, it's detrimental to your mental health, and however you choose to cope with it, whether it's with eating, drinking, drugs, having sex a bunch, to just not think about it. I think that it teenagers are unstable as it is, and then when you add trauma to it, it's just like, oh, there's, I'm setting myself for failure as an adult. And I think that it's great that you were able to pull yourself. I don't know if you have kids of your own now, but for you to say, I need to pull myself out of this so I can take care of my sister's children because she's going through it right now. I think that that speaks a lot about, you're still able to in your mind associate that with, okay, I need to be, this isn't for me anymore, this is for somebody else. And having that selflessness is it's commendable. So also, you kind of addressed this a little bit with you having to take some things out, like for your mom, so she didn't have to read it. But in the process of writing The Girl from Pompeii, did you how many of your friends and family were involved in, I guess, reading drafts and kind of giving feedback? And did they ever read it and look to you and be like, wow, I didn't know you were going through that?
No, I didn't let any of them read it. So none of them actually read the book. Um, so I didn't really have to face that problem. But I have had to face them reading the book since it's been out. And I have had some negative feedback from some of them. Well, I say some of them, I've just one of them has actually contacted me, is not very happy with me at all.
Is it
Um,
because of the way that you portrayed them in the book, or?
they weren't even in the book. So a relationship a distant relationship. I've got a lot of nieces, a lot of nephews, and I've got a couple of nieces that I didn't really have much to do with growing up. And trying to piece together what happened back then, I remember visiting her mum, and her mum said that I could see the kids, but obviously I couldn't be on drink and drugs. And I was like, okay. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not going to see them then because I can't.
Mm.
So unfortunately, I didn't have a relationship with them. And one of my nieces is particularly angry because she bought the book. And then she said, I thought reading the book would give me more of an insight to your life and why you weren't in mine. And now she's refused to talk to me. So I think she's read the book, and I think she's probably missed some of the point, which was, it's a selfish thing. When you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict, you are quite a selfish person. I'm not saying all the time, but generally it is about your drink and drug needs come first. So therefore, that's why I couldn't really see her. But apart from that one, I think the rest of them have actually been okay. I've had to have some awkward conversations. And if anyone reads the book, you'll see that with my brother Elijah, we had a big falling out. I mean, you try and kill their wife and they don't want to talk to you much no more. And we now have a relationship. So I had to say to him, I had to dredge up the past with this book. And he just said to me, one response, he said, is it true? What's in there? I said, yeah. That's fine then.
I think that's good. That's honesty is like forging the path for healing. Like I said, it really is things with family. If somebody is honest with you and tells you the things that, there are a lot of people that they say, oh, well, I just want you to be honest with me. I just want you to be truthful with me. And then you tell the truth and they're like, damn, that's really how you felt. I don't think I want to talk to you anymore. I think that if you do make the decision to part ways with that person, especially if they're family, it has to be something that is like, okay, I understand what you wrote, I understand everything, but I just don't think that that's something that I can be a part of, and part amicably. But for you to part angrily because you don't agree with their opinion, don't agree with why they did what they did. Agreeance is not really what you're looking for here. It's looking for understanding that yes, this happened and this is why it wasn't great, it wasn't right, but we're family, so let's figure out a way to move past this, because I think even with, especially with family, you're more accepting and more tolerant than you would be with anybody else. And I think that if if your niece doesn't understand what's going on, it may also just be that she's maybe too young to see that, as you get older you realize you're right. When you have a problem like that, it is entirely selfish. You're not drinking and doing drugs for others. You're doing it to cope with what you're going through. Nobody wants to be that person who's dripping bacon grease off of on their shirt, or wearing their underpants in the corner at the party. But that's really what's going on. So I think that, I hope that your niece comes around and realizes that. But I think that it's actually a conversation I was having earlier today. A friend showed me a TikTok video about somebody who was giving advice on what she thought was going on with parenting in a previous generation as opposed to now. And one of my first questions was, does she have children? And it was like, no, I don't think so. And it's like, oh, that makes sense on why she has that opinion. Because people who I generally make it a rule to not accept advice from somebody who has not gone through what I'm seeking advice for. Like I imagine somebody coming to you who has not experienced the problem with addiction of any sort, coming to you and trying to tell you about yourself, and you're like, but you haven't been there, so you couldn't really know what it is. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, how long did it take for you to put together? I know that you had like 10 years of research and, all that other stuff going on, but how long did it take you to actually put together the book?
The book actually took a very, very, very long time, but there is a reason. I had a very, very long sabbatical, if you want to call it that. So I started writing the book, and I was pretty fast, if I'm honest. I was writing, and it was all going well, and I was writing nearly every day. And at the time, I was living with my brother, Brand, and unfortunately, he got diagnosed with cancer. And I was working full time, and I had just started my own children's entertainment company. And he's a very proud person. He's only 18 months older than me, very proud person. So he refused to accept help from the benefits, which would be like state help, I think, in your country.
Yeah.
No, he's paid into it. He refused to apply for it. And we just tried to get through it together because we were living together at the time. So I had to work 24/7, and our money went into the house and trying to be there for him as much as I could. So I took a break from writing. And then we moved house, and we tried to take what I would call a nice little, not a holiday, but from life. And we tried a year where we weren't doing all our extra projects. We're trying to say, okay, at the moment, the cancer's under control a little bit. Let's try and enjoy the next year. Didn't quite go to plan. It came back. And it's only when he got back to his health, I suppose, that I then returned to the book. So there was quite a few years where I wasn't actually writing the book, and I went, oh, okay, let's finish the book now. So I sat down, I finished the book. Well, hey, book's done. And then I didn't go back to the publisher that I'd spoken to about getting the book out there. And then all of a sudden, one day I just turned to my partner. I said, oh, well, I'm going to get my book published. And boom, it went from there.
Wow.
So you're looking, it's over about 11 years. If you look at when I started writing the book, which is why I believe that when you read the final chapters, you can see that the writing's slightly different and how I've changed as a person. I think that's noticeable on a very subtle level. So that's how the book has included so many years of research as well, because I've never stopped with the research, but I did stop with the recording almost of the book.
I couldn't put down, let's say, a blog article that I'm writing for like a month and then go back to it and feel like I'm the same person. I look at them and be like, oh my God, I thought that a month ago? Like that doesn't even seem like me anymore. So I just have to like erase it and start over. I actually think that timeline is, instead of a month, it's more like 2 or 3 days. Last night I was writing a blog article. I woke up this morning, I'm reading it, and I'm like, what in the hell was I thinking? So I think maybe that's what paused my journey on my own book writing because I had to stop it when my partner